Hey there, it's me Nate, and today I'm going to be giving you my review of The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Now, The Poppy War is the first book of R.F. Kuang's Poppy War Trilogy, and it is basically Chinese-inspired military fantasy starring this young orphan girl named Rin, who, by circumstances of her adopted parents, has to do whatever she can to acquire knowledge and then pass this test so that she can go to this academy where her tuition will be paid for. So that way she can escape from her adopted parents trying to basically sell her off to an old man to be his wife. And so I will say that this book it's a bit interesting. There's, like I said, The Poppy War is a trilogy of books. But this first book, The Poppy War, could have been 2 or 3 books on its own. This is, at least my edition, right, is like 560 pages or so. But in those 500-something pages, about 2 or 3 books worth of content is just kind of just squished into this volume. Because the first third or so of this book, this first chunk of this book, is about Rin studying and trying to get into this academy and then succeeding and getting into this academy, which is called Senegard, by the way. And that's like the first third of the book. And there's like a natural end point for a book at the end of that section. And then the book goes on for like another 250, 300 pages or so, because there is a huge change where, partway through the book, where we leave the school and we are engaged in this conflict, this Poppy War, and the circumstances change for Rin and all the other characters of the story, and it feels like something that should have been saved for a sequel. And then we're in like this conflict, and then part of the way through that conflict, things change again. And that feels like where another book would have taken place. So I feel like the Poppy War itself could have been 3 books separated out. And I think that would have done a lot to help with the pacing and for character growth and for character relationships to feel more believable if this had been expanded out into 2 or 3 books. Because also in the second half of the book, you get introduced to like a large number of new characters that are completely brand new, that were not at all part of like the first portion of the book. And then you're just expected to like quickly learn all these new characters and care about them or have an opinion about them or feel anything about them, and you don't. And so I would say that this book feels highly rushed for not any real reason. There's a section when she is in the academy that we skip like 2 years just because. So that's one of my complaints about this book. It feels very rushed. It feels like it's multiple books worth of content squished down into this one book. But I'll tell you one of the things I do like. The first portion of this book, basically when she's at the academy, I really like that part of the book. Some people don't. Some people find that part of the book a bit slog and they like the rest of it. I feel the opposite. I think the beginning chunk of this book is the best part, and then the rest of it is where it gets bad. Because while she's at the academy, Rin is initially kind of elated. She feels that she has kind of escaped from poverty, escaped this like kind of awful fate, of being basically like sold off to be like this, this much older man's wife. And she feels that like her life is like, is she, she's on a uprise now, that things will be better from here on. But when she gets there, she feels like this new level of discrimination than before, because all the people from Synagard, they look a bit different from her. Their skin's paler, they talk differently, they a lot of them are like the children of like wealthy merchants or wealthy, warlords or noblemen. And so they very naturally look down on her. And they've been, training and studying to be at this academy for their whole life. And she has just been basically like cramming and torturing herself to get into the school for the last 2 years. So even though she's made it in, there is still like a huge gap in experience and knowledge that she feels, and she is like tormented and feels lesser than. And a lot of that is so interesting how they talk about it, how R.F. Kuang depicts it in this book, and how in order to not lose her place or be seen as lesser than, because despite how like downtrodden she is and how she feels, she also has this large sense of like personal pride. And so Rin will do whatever it takes, even like, in some ways mutilate and destroy herself in order to succeed, in order to get ahead, in order to be better than these people that look down on her. And I thought like all of those themes were like really interesting, and I thought they were like really well explored. And there's nothing else like that in the rest of the book. After we get past the academy stuff, it's all just a huge downwards trajectory. Because after we get through the academy part, there's a huge war, there's huge conflict, because well, I don't want to get into it because that's too much of a spoiler. I will say that there is a conflict, that there is like a like an ending to the academy part. There's this conflict, and everything changes, and we're thrown into like this like war section. That's very much like fully military fantasy section of the book, and it's so boring. And the book shifts to a lot of tell, not show, which a lot of people will see as a good thing, because like a lot of the aspects and horrors of war that are told to us by survivors in this book are awful, horrible things that you don't want to, that you wouldn't want to like experience, because they're based on real life tragedies from Chinese history in like the Sino-Japanese War. But it's very much like Rin and the character she's traveling will get to a place, and then the survivors there will tell them, this war is awful because this, and this happened. And you don't really feel any of it, because beforehand we spent the last 150 pages basically like patrolling and standing around and doing nothing. So this, again, the pacing issues of this book really crop up, because we should have had one book that was the academy section, another book that was kind of like this war, like fully military conflict, and then a third book which would deal more with like kind of like the gods and the magic system stuff leading up to the ending. And so now I'll get into the next part. So the magic system in the Poppy War is basically based on shamanism, where people through shamanic practice, like meditation, and like studying like martial arts and like philosophy, can basically like kind of like mentally project themselves up to like a higher plane of existence where the gods exist. And the gods are not so much as like singular existences as much as they are like chaotic forces of nature. And they do not want the same thing that humans want. They have like they are like fully surrendered to the natures. Some gods want to destroy, some gods like want to create, but like they see humans as kind of just more as like vessels that they can kind of bargain with to take control of, to exact like their kind of like their urges upon the earth. And part of the way that the magic system and like the shamans connect to this higher plane is by using like psychedelics and hallucinogens, including, you know, poppy seed or opium, which, you know, is again a part of like, you know, the Chinese history. And they talk about how, like, you know, foreign nations basically spread opium inside, you know, China, you know, at the time. And that is, you know, also kind of like reflected in this book. And like the third, like, you know, last section of the book deals heavily with that and like a more like the magical kind of aspects of the world. So yeah, I in a way you could break up this first book, the Poppy War, into like 3 books, and you could space it out. It's like, oh, I'm gonna read book 1, book 2, book 3 of the Poppy War. This, in my opinion, is a trilogy of books in and of itself, and only the first one is really given any time, the necessary time, to breathe. And like I mentioned before, this book is based a lot upon Chinese history, and it's not, I would say it's not so much inspired by as it is straight lifted from like textbooks and like nonfiction. It is so obviously this country and this country and that country that R.F. Kuang is talking about, that I don't even see the real reason why we have to call China the Empire of Nikara or Nikon, and we have to call Japan, what do they call it? The Federation of Mugen, or the Longbow Island, or we have to call Taiwan Spearly. It's so heavily reliant on real life history and real life, you know, historical accounts of like war and tragedies that have happened, that I think it would have made more sense to have this book just be like an alt history take on our world. I don't think there's any real need to like fantasify it, you know, by coming up with like these made up names of countries and places. I think it would have made it more, I don't know, felt more real, felt more realistic in the war aspects if I did, you know, if it was just China and Japan and whatnot. But that's just me. That's just how I feel about it. And let's see, what else do I have to say about this? And now, moving on, you know, from that standpoint of like how the world and kind of the history is like kind of like depicted in this book, I want to talk about the characters. So basically, other than Rin herself, we do not get really any kind of like real character development or interesting character moments from basically any of the other characters in this book. There are a lot of characters in this book, but I felt nothing for them. Rin herself, like I mentioned, has a lot of interesting character moments during the Academy section, but when it gets to like the war and like the conflict sections of the book, it's basically Rin being like, "Oh, I'm stuck in this position. I'm kind of like I've been like kind of like pushed like into like this like warfare, this conflict, but I kind of like want positive affirmation and basically a pat on the head from my commander, because even though he treats me like shit and like pushes me around and insults me, I hope he might kiss me." It's like it felt like such a regression of her character, of like who she had built herself up as, you know, in the first section of the book. And then there's like another male character. It's like, oh, he's so beautiful. Like there's a point, you know, when we hate each other and he could have almost killed or maimed me before, and he did it intentionally. But I guess I'll forgive him, and maybe I'll kiss this boy. And it's just like, it's so pathetic, and it feels like so inconsistent with who the character was previously in like another, in another portion of the book. So like, as the book progressed, I like Rin less and less. And not so much, at least at that point, not because of the choices she made, but because of how I felt like R.F. Kuang kind of changed who the character was as she went along. And there's a lot I would say, if I could, give spoilers, but I try to keep all my reviews as spoiler-free as possible. So I'm not going to do that. But there are... she has like this mentor character that she meets named Jang, and I found him to be really interesting. And then they introduce him, and he kind of teaches her about the shamanism and like kind of like connecting with nature and like connecting with the gods and stuff like that. And then it kind of drops the ball from there, and we meet Alton, who is the last of the Spearleys, this like race that is like were extremely militarily powerful, that were subjugated by one of the previous emperors of Nakan, and how Rin and like a lot of the other students, admire his like strength and intelligence, and like Rin has like this like crush on him, and how that comes into play like later on, and so, but like all of these characters, they are very meh. Like we don't really get much from them, and like we get some stuff with Alton in this book, but it is extremely rushed. And anytime there would like Rin might feel like some kind of criticism towards a character, towards like one of the other characters, R.F. Kuang will come in basically and be like, well, you shouldn't feel like that, Rin, because here's why this character acts like that, and just like blatantly tells us like this character's backstory. And then Rin the next page will be like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have felt like that, and then she'll completely 180. Like, none of the characters in this book stand for anything. I don't even know. It feels like a lot of the characters have no real motivations or goals tied to what they're doing. They're just doing it just because. Rin, like, early on in the book is like very much just like, she goes to Sinagar, she goes to the academy in order to like for herself to survive, because she doesn't want to like live the kind of life that her foster parents want for her. And so like when she is in the war scenario, Rin has no point of being there. Like, she herself doesn't get anything out of it, and she's not some patriot. She's never once really cared about like what happens to like the people of Nakan. She's not that type of character. She's not some selfless hero. She says that she loves and cares about her little brother, like her adopted little brother, the child of her adopted parents, but other than like the beginning of the book, she basically never thinks about him a single time ever again, even despite like this huge war that is like happening across the nation on all fronts of the country. She never once really thinks about going back to see if he's safe or anything. She doesn't care. Rin only cares about the safety of herself. So I don't like, it never gives any sense. The entire time the war was happening, it's like, my thought was, why is she even here? Like, if, based on like what we know of Rin would desert, like a lot of these other soldiers are deserting. She would desert and leave and flee because she only cares about her own self-preservation. But like, seemingly the only real reason that Rin stays around is maybe in pursuit of more power, or maybe to I don't know, kiss or be a relationship with one of these boys that she likes. But before Rin cares about her power, about gaining more power, if I could talk, she cares about her own self-preservation and putting herself, her own safety and security above that. So to me, it's like I don't even know why Rin is in this conflict. She has like no business being here because she doesn't care about this country. She doesn't care about these people. She doesn't even care about the people that she's like this military unit that she's a part of. I don't know, but I think I ranted enough about this book. Oh, one last thing. I kind of touched on this, as I was going. Tonally, this book is a bit all over the place. Like, one part we'll be having, R.F. Kuang will be telling us about, like the horrors of kind of, like, military and war and, like, the atrocities and, like human rights crimes that have been perpetrated upon citizens, by militaries. And then the next section, Ren will be having like YA level romantic drama with one of the boys amidst this city of people who have been like burnt alive. And it's like another situation where like her and another character are about to die, and she's just like wondering, oh, is he gonna kiss me? It's so pathetic. It's such subpar, mediocre writing. I knew going into this that the Poppy War was a highly polarizing book. I was honestly expecting, since I liked the first part, the Academy part, I was expecting that I was going to be one of those people who liked the Poppy War, and I was looking forward to reading the rest of the series. But now, having finished the book as a whole, I have no interest in reading the rest of the Poppy War. I definitely will not be continuing. And R.F. Kuang is now 0 for 2 for me, because I didn't mention it, obviously, in like I think it was like my June reading wrap-up. But like during June, I tried Babel, and I thought Babel was better written than this book, but I think Babel is boring as hell. I think it's a very extremely boring book. So R.F. Kuang is now 0 for 2 for me, and like I think R.F. Kuang is one of those writers that it's not going to work for me. I mean, I'll give her maybe one more chance. I think I might try Catabasis either this year or next year. But if that doesn't work, I'm definitely going to be done with R.F. Kuang as a writer. I don't think she's all that. But moving on, my score for the Poppy War, I'm giving this book 1 out of 5 stars. I extremely dislike this book. This is the worst book I've read so far this year. For me, a 2 star is a bad book. 1 is an extreme dislike or hate. I'm so glad I got this book on Amazon, because I still have enough time to return it and get my money back. I wouldn't recommend this book to anybody, really. I think if you want military fantasy, there's definitely probably better things out there. If you want like YA, there's better things out there. If you want grimdark, there's better things out there, I'm sure, on all those fronts. So yeah, I don't think the Poppy War is really a book worth reading. I don't think it's worth anybody's time. But those are my thoughts. Sorry I got a bit ranty there, but I think this book is in some ways atrocious. But if you liked the video, you can I hope if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you would, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, have a good day.